Welcome to another G4 Guitar Teacher Hangout. David Hart's my name. What we're going to do today is go through our standard format, and that's ask each of the guys a question and try and work through the question, do some problem solving, brainstorming, whatever we can come up with. And so I'll just start with Paul. Paul, what would you like to raise today? What topic, question, problem, challenge?
Something I suppose would be quite good to talk about and just kind of get a discussion going is my wife's going to be joining me in a couple of months. She's leaving her work to come and join me. So what we're going to do is sit down and IMEF kind of approach of going through different areas of the business and also assign a different area to a different person kind of idea. So I thought it might be quite nice just to have a discussion about the different areas that are there and just kind of riff on that a little bit maybe.
Yep. Okay, so we can talk about setting out the roles, so to speak, like the IMEF approach is creating the roles, okay? Roles, systemizing, etc. Okay, that's good. And, you know, I'll get more into this in a minute, but it is one of those topics which is an evolution. You're always evolving your roles and your systems, and, you know, there's no end to it, but we'll get to it shortly. Bob, did you have something you wanted to talk about today? I know sometimes you like to just listen in, but is any topic you want to raise today?
One thing I'm looking at is I'm now getting to the point where I'm out distributing flyers, so I'm hoping for a large influx of students soon. Yep. Just some ideas about how to schedule them, how to get them from introduction into a group. Because I'm very conscious of when I book in students before, now I mostly dealt with adults, scheduling has always been kind of an issue,
yep.
You know, as far as when they're available. So if I say to them, are you available for the introduction time, the group time will be different and a different day. So how do you go about handling that and grouping people appropriately, and how do you schedule different blocks for different ages throughout the day, blah, 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 that sort of thing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a good It's a good question. It's one that I've answered a few times before, but it's really important, and it's one I really want to answer again because I think it's one of those areas that a lot of teachers get stuck on, and you know, it's a challenging one at first, but once you sort of take it on, I'll explain. Like I said, I'll explain it in a minute. But it'll be one of those scenarios where if you do it right from the beginning, which is what you're really doing, yeah. You're asking that question at the right time, then it'll make it much easier down the track. So, okay, cool.
Okay, great.
Okay, Ben Messenger, what would you like to talk about?
Is this an appropriate forum to talk about the method in depth, David, or do you find it easier going back into on Facebook?
No, this is good. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
I'm just aware that it could take, you know, potentially it could be hours and hours of discussion, couldn't it? Over let's change that, let's move that, let's put that there.
Yeah. Well, what we want to do is bring it up in bits and pieces anyway. So even though there's quite a bit of chat could be around it, let's get into it a little bit tonight because Ben Al-Qaidi also wants to talk about it. He's got some ideas around it as well. So, and that's really what I'm looking for when I put up the new version, which has just gone up. The idea is to get the feedback because I know I'm not going to spend hours and hours on it trying to get it how I think is perfect. I'd rather throw it out there a little bit, you know, underdone and get you guys to throw it back at me, so then I can sort of look at what's important rather than wasting time on things that you guys may or may not care about. So that's great. All right, so we'll do that. So, and I've got Ben on that as well. So we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so let's get to Paul's first and talk about bringing in his wife and getting her into playing certain roles, which is it's one of those things. It's exciting, but you also have to do it right because you don't want to turn your work into a marital fight. You want it to be something where you guys are both on the same team and both understand what you're doing and who's doing what, where, and how. And so I think it's a really good test. And when I hear of family feuds in business, which happen a lot, by the way, what the reason it happens is mostly because nobody's got clear roles and everybody's stepping over each other's roles, and they're also not supporting each other. Because in today's world, in today's business world, there's a very big difference to how it used to be. This is one of the things that with the E-Myth that you need to be careful with, is the E-Myth was written in a different era. So transferring all the information and all the lessons from the E-Myth into today, you need to take what was relevant, or what is relevant today from 20 years ago, to what is not relevant, and leave that stuff out. So in today's corporate world, business world, one of the things that they talk about, and Google and Facebook and all these companies, if you look at these companies, their employees are very flexible. They're able to move from role to role. If you get into the inside, what you're going to see is that people are very, very quickly going to move from one position in the company to another position. And what it does is it keeps them fresh, it keeps them challenged, looking for new things, but also when people see something different, they can often solve a problem that somebody else couldn't. And we can see this with we think about students. If you're teaching your classes with the same teacher, same students, you're going to fall into patterns, and you're going to have the same things happen again and again. Whereas if you change, if I come in there and take over your students, or you take over my students, some of the students that I was having trouble with, you may be able to solve the problems that I was having, and vice versa. I can look at your students and see it from a different point of view. So you do need to be flexible at the same time. But what you want to do is write the roles out and decide, and this is the E-Myth, this is what you do want to take away from the E-Myth, is having each role having a series of steps. With Sizer, for example, who's my assistant in the Philippines, I have everything written down step by step by step. So when she does something like builds the website, she goes through a whole bunch of steps. And if she says to me something like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, first thing I do is go back to the steps and have a look, okay, what step is that? If that was step 9, and then I realize, oh, something's missing there, or I didn't quite give you enough information, or she didn't understand it, then I know I need to update that. So everything, the idea and the strength of the E-Myth, and it was just really just a McDonald's analysis. That's what Gerber's done. He's looked at McDonald's and thought, how does McDonald's work? Because it's the most successful food restaurant in the world. How did they do it? You know, franchise. How did they do it? And so he went and just looked. He broke it all down and worked out how they did it. And that's what the E-Myth is about. So if you look at every procedure that you do, everything you go through, and you write it down step by step, and then give it to someone so they can walk through it without you needing to tell them what to do, just simply by following your steps, then you know your manual is correct. If your manual needs somebody who has a high skill set, then you obviously got to consider that as well. And again, he talks about that in his book, looking for people who are going to, or creating roles which create the lowest skill set. And believe it or not, in today's world, a lot of the jobs require less and less skills, and that's because computers are bringing things in that can compensate for a lack of skill that somebody has. So I don't need to be a computer programmer or a know certain languages to create a website anymore. Whereas go back 10 years or a little bit more, you had to be able to write code if you wanted to create a website. Today you don't have to. So this is happening more and more, and so when it comes to the E-Myth, and this, again, if I go back to when the E-Myth was written, computers were sort of, they were around, of course they were doing stuff, but they weren't as predominant as they are today, and the internet certainly wasn't around. So what you can do now is take those ideas and not just set up roles for people, but set up roles that are automated. So things, what can you do that's an automated role? And what I would be more looking at within your businesses is how to automate things. That's where you're going to save the most time. How can you get a computer, or soon a robot, to do the things that need to be done? Because computers, robots, etc., they don't need holidays, they don't need to be paid, they don't need lunch breaks, they're not going to complain, they will just do the job. And that's where, as much as you want to automate those systems. And so your prime role will be managing, hopefully, your teachers, and the rest will be pretty well automated. So as far as what will your wife do in your business, I think the best thing for her would be to be your guinea pig to building your systems, to get her to go through the systems. And if she can't follow the systems, then your systems need work. And also the G4 systems, because that's part of why we're working together, is so we can create the systems and all work together. So we're not all reinventing the wheel here. And that's something that I kind of, I guess I want to get across, is that if there's something that we're all doing, why are we all inventing our own systems to do it? Why don't we have one system? And that's what we're trying to get to. It's easier said than done, I know. But if you look at the flyers, for instance, across the UK, imagine if you had a dedicated flyer team who did all the flyers for all of you guys across the UK, and they just went around and did it, and they organised it all, had it all in control, the printing, everything was done. That would save you guys a lot of time, a lot of energy, rather than each of you training up flyer people. Find one guy, one girl or guy to be your flyer, international or sorry, UK flyer trainer, and then what they do is they go around and they prep up, find people, employ them, and the whole thing. And that way you will all save time and energy. Now, Paul, do you want to get into some specifics about when's your wife actually going to start with you?
Kind of early next year, so a few months away.
Yep.
And yeah, so just kind of thinking about in the minute how she's going to come in, how we can make it kind of smooth, but how we can make sure we both stay on task and make sure we both have clear, defined goals, so we're not treading each other's toes, or, kind of getting a little bit. So we're utilising one another properly. Obviously, I'll be in charge of the teaching. She's not a guitarist, but she is very good at admin. She's very good at numbers, so she'll be in charge of kind of the bookkeeping side of it, which I struggle with. So
okay,
I think
cool.
That's going to be her strengths.
Yep. Well, see, things like for your accounting, what are you using for your accounts?
At the minute, I'm using paper-based. I don't use a system like a QuickBooks or anything like that. Okay. I have an accountant.
Okay, so for an example, QuickBooks itself costs, I don't know what it costs you guys, £10, £12 a month. It's not expensive, right? It will be something that will save you a time. In other words, it'll save you several hours a month. It might save, it depends on how long you take to do your current system, but I guarantee you it will save you some time. It'll import all your bank accounts, it'll do all that. Now, your wife, for example, could come on and she could spend some time with Sizer, and Sizer could take her through how to use QuickBooks. And that way, you don't have to do anything. We will take care of that for you, and that way she learns QuickBooks. Like you said, she's good at admin. If she's the kind of person that doesn't like things left undone or half done, she's very particular, then she's going to be perfect for your accounts, because that's the kind of person you want doing your books. Someone who balances it to the cent every month, will not stand for anything less than it being perfect. And so that will make it easy for you, because you don't have to go and learn QuickBooks. We already have Sizer doing it, and then Sizer can help. But she can learn a lot herself online, of course, through videos and whatever. There's so much, yourself. Yeah, you spend a lot of time online. So just getting her to, giving her ways. I always talk about teaching people to fish, and that's the whole way of the G4 method, is that we don't want to just give you songs and do what most guitar teachers do, which is teach you one song at a time, one note at a time, and so you're with me for the next 10 years, eventually you'll learn guitar, that's great, but I'd rather teach you how to learn and teach you how to find the things. And that's, when students say, can I learn this song? Sure, there's a ton of YouTube videos out there, go and have a look at them. Oh yeah, but what if they're wrong? Well, that's up to you to train your ear into, we're teaching you all the skills, and as you develop those skills, you'll know whether it's wrong or right. You won't need to look at the video and go, is it wrong or right? So if you can teach your wife how to find the information, that will be more valuable than you having to teach her everything. Cool?
Cool.
Yeah. So the other thing I would add there is, what do you least like doing that she would most like doing? That's where I would start.
Yeah, that's definitely the accounts. It's definitely that side of it.
Okay, cool. So whatever you don't like doing, put on a list and go, sweetheart, pick from this list. Whatever you You know, whatever you want to do, you just pick off the list, because I'll be happy to hand any of this stuff over to you, and then you spend some time with her going through it, especially if you've got a certain way that you like it done or information that you want. But then once she understands it, then what you want to be do say with accounting, let's say you're set up in QuickBooks, you want to be able to ask her for a report. You want to say, can you give me a report for last month profit and loss, and you know, just so I can see how we're traveling, and can you give me a report based on this year, last year, are we making more money than we did this time last year? If so, what's the growth? So just give her some reports that you want, and that way you can, all you need to do is when you see the reports, if it doesn't look right, then you know something's probably wrong. If you're looking at it and you're making half as much money as you did last year, but yet you know that you still got the same amount of students, then you can ask questions. Hang on, that can't be right. And that way you can have a look at it, and you might see that some students haven't paid, or certain things haven't been processed properly. So it'll tell you what you need to know. All right, and what you can do as a final check, and I would say this to her as well, is to bring in someone who, like an accountant or a specialist bookkeeper, just to have a look at your books every now and again, just to make sure they're being done properly. So you don't have to be checking her all the time, and someone who knows the books well can check it. But you look, one of the things about G4 and the way that I kind of set it up is that you should be pretty clear. If you've got 50 students, you should be, 50 times £59 is what should be ending up in your bank account every month. And if that's not what's ending up in your bank account, there's probably something wrong. Okay, it's pretty simple. All right. Any last questions, Owen?
No, I think that's cool.
Cool. All right. Okay. Excellent. Exciting. So, Bob, so what I'll do is I'm going to go around to the other guys, just to get them a little bit involved and ask them on this topic, and then I'll add to the end. So in terms of scheduling, you want to know how to do it the right way. So let me start with Ben Al-Qaidi. What are some of the things that you, in terms of scheduling, that you think you should do or shouldn't do, or mistakes you've made? Any comments you can give on this topic?
Generally, where possible, have the older they are, the later the lesson. And then, as we've said in all sorts of places, if you can, don't teach on Mondays, because that's when most bank holidays will be, so you'll get the most kind of cancellations there.
Yeah.
And then just think how many days you want to teach.
Yeah.
Because
So
I'm happy to
pick
teach
your
on
days.
5 days. I've chosen 2 for intros and 3 for groups. I didn't have a weekend group day, and I still don't. And it might be costing me students, but then maybe if any of those 3 days isn't enough, then maybe they're not committed enough. But that's something that you might want to consider, having a weekend day for people who are busy every weekday.
Yeah, I teach on Sundays at the moment. The other thing I was wondering about is getting people in and out. So say I have 2 groups of 5. That's going to be a lot of people coming through my door at a particular time, and then a half hour later. Do you start out by spacing them out, like every group starts at the top of the hour, or something like that, so you have time to get
Is that me
people in?
personally? I have a brilliant. I've got a perfect view of my whole front kind of area, so I can leave the door on the latch quite safely and see anyone coming in and out the whole time. And I just have chairs in the hall. I see the students arrive. They just come through, sit in the chairs if they're early, and then at the end, people just file in and out past each other.
Yeah, I don't have that. I don't have access
Overall
or
area.
Yeah, if you, Bob, on that point, if you do have to know what your capabilities are, and that comes right down to everything from parking. If you've got 5 students coming, 5 students going, you could need as many as 10 car spots at any given time. Things like, capacity. I had, during my busy times, it was like a nightclub. There were, 5 students coming, 5 students going, with at least one parent, often with siblings. So you could have up to 30 people there all at one time. So,
I know.
But yeah, it can be chaotic. The thing is, you got to work within what you have, and then when you see that time is right, growth-wise, that's when you need to look for something bigger if you want to grow. Otherwise, you obviously won't grow. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what do I do right now. I have plenty of parking. That's not the problem.
Okay. What's your capacity then? How many people do you think you could have in your waiting area at one time?
I don't really have. In my studio, I could have easily 5 students and 5 parents.
Okay. All right. So really, with the crossover, it's just the fact that you'll double that number. You could have as many as 20 people, and and that's not counting any siblings that come along as well. So you're really, what you got to think about is, okay, probably the capacity is 3 students. And look, people, when they realise that there's not a lot of room in there, think parents will people will accommodate, they'll squeeze in, but but it won't necessarily be that comfortable. I would sort of set your groups at maybe 3, and then when you realise that you've got the income and you're in that situation, then look for the commercial premise to keep growing. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, cool. So I'll go to Ben Messenger. What advice would you give, Ben?
I'm where you said, David. I've set my groups at 3 because my actual teaching room that I'm renting is really me plus 3 adults is a squeeze. I've no waiting room. I've got a corridor, and there's other officers adjoining me, so I have to be aware of that. But at the times that I'm teaching, generally the other offices are empty or quiet. It's the end of the day, so it's no problem. Having said that, Bob, it's amazing how people just learn. Over time, I had one family who would bring little brother, little sister, and other friends from school at 3:30, which was great. And rather than me saying let's move your time to a later time, I said 3:30 is on the time I've got. And over the coming weeks, they stopped bringing too many people with them, or they'd wait in the car. So it worked out really well. Having said that, it created a really good buzz when, as David said, when a group of 2 or 3 had come out. Oh, they recognise, so-and-so from school, or so-and-so from down the street, I didn't know you had lessons here, and blah, 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 blah. And then the group of other 2 or 3 come in, and it creates a nice buzz. I just wish I had more space for it. But I think the main thing is set your rules like you do with your policies, and people will follow them. They will learn. I've never had someone leave because the time wasn't, convenient, or they didn't like the idea that they couldn't get parked, or they didn't have somewhere to sit and wait. People learn, and people adapt to it generally. If they're going to be that fussy about not having a parking space every time, or not having somewhere nice to sit while the lesson's going on, you could argue, maybe is that just the tip of the iceberg? Will there be a million other things that they'll complain about in future? I don't know. Yeah,
because I'm just cognizant that it's a very different thing having one student show up while one student is leaving. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, of course.
So when I have 10 people coming into the house and 10 people leaving.
I guess you sound very similar to where I was probably 8-9 months ago, and it was all what if. I know it's not as easy as this, but having been exactly where you are, just jump in and do it, and if any problems arrive, you'll fix them, and you've got our support and our help, and you've got years of experience between all of us. Honestly, it's never as big a deal as you make out in your own head, if that makes sense. I'm not patronising you, but yeah, just jump. I'd jump in and do it and not worry about it. I think the main thing is, you said you've got car parking outside, you know what room you've got in the studio. Anything outside of that, I wouldn't worry. I worried for ages, thinking I can only fit 3 people in here, and there's an office next door, and I've no waiting area, and sometimes the car park is full. And actually, as it happens, I'm coming up to 12 months of being in that place, and actually, I don't think there's ever been any of those problems really ever cropped up, to be honest.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So worrying about nothing. Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, it is like that, and a lot of things that often the things that you don't expect to be problems are the things that become the problems, and the things that you do expect to be a problem are actually not a problem, or they're not as big a deal as you think. So, and the advice Ben there gives is, and that's one of the things that I always try and get across, is you just got to go for it. Sometimes you just got to push ahead and just work it out. As it's not life or death. We're not flying planes or doing surgery here. It's just guitar teaching. So just jump out there and I think that, you know, when you get to that, having that problem of too many students at your home, it's a good problem to have, because that's when you know you're kind of being nudged out of where you are.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm looking forward to that today.
I will just pick up on one other thing that Ben said there, was the fact that when you have that, it kind of, like I call it, the nightclub experience, where you've got all these kids coming and going, all these people coming and going, you know, like 30 people at one time, that really generates an amazing kind of energy, if you like, and people are talking to each other, and lots of people coming in and out of your studio, people, all the neighbouring shops. I remember when I started there, and you know, Northbridge, and then, you know, it was probably about 6 or 7 months later, I went from being this kind of quiet, empty office space that no one never heard anything from, to this constant, you know, afternoon traffic coming in and out of there, and everybody was like, what's going on there? What are you doing up there? And it really is an exciting time, because you can see that the word is spreading, and you no longer have to even worry about marketing, because the phone just keeps ringing, and everybody wants to get in on what you're doing. So
yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll go to Paul. Paul, did you want to add anything to that?
No.
No, all good. Got it covered. Fantastic.
I did really well. I just said pretty much, I think, everything I said. One of the big concerns I had, which I think Bob did say, was having people come in straight after. I did used to leave a buffer, but as soon as I got rid of that, and it was back to back, and this was years ago I used a buffer, it wasn't recent G4 stuff, there wasn't a problem anyway. You know, back to back wasn't really an issue. As long as you're quick, in regards to, you know, don't hang around too much, there's a little bit of chat with parents, it works really well. Yeah, I've not had a problem with that.
It does, yeah. People, again, back to what Ben said, people, they learn. They know what to do. You know, whether or not to come in, or you know, whether or not to, you know, how long to stay and chat for. If this is where I've had teachers that work for me, and other teachers I've spoken to, they go, oh, you know, I can't get the parent to leave, or the student always stays 10 minutes longer. And I was, well, that's because you've let it happen. Yeah. You've got to teach them that your lessons finish on time every time. I guarantee if you finish your lessons on time every time, your students very quickly will learn that's how you operate, and they won't expect more time. But if you give them extra time, guess what? After a couple of weeks, they're going to expect that extra time every time. So,
well, yeah, I have a situation now with a lot of my adult students, because when the lesson's over, we kind of just chit chat a little bit, you know, blah 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 blah, you know, the weather, politics, whatever, and you know, they're out the door like 15 minutes after the lesson ends, and you know, it's okay. I get a little bit of a chit chat with somebody because I'm alone all day, so it's fine for me. But you know, it's just kind of like, you know.
Yeah, and it's okay when you're not busy, but once you get busy, yeah, it becomes a problem, and it also rolls over onto your other students, because students are sometimes waiting for their lesson. They're sitting out there. Okay, you know. So it's really important to think. It's like they say, you need to prepare for success. You need to set up your business right now. And again, that's an IMEF lesson, is about structuring your business in such a way that it's going to be, it's already prepared for when you've got 100 students. Don't wait till you get to 100 students to prepare for 100 students.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the only thing I would add there, because the guys covered it really well, is that on the G4 Guitar website, the business plan, have a look at the schedule that I've got there. When you create an idea schedule, think of it almost like a concert tour. Bands don't ring up all their fans and go, hey, when would you like me to perform in your city? What would suit you? What time would suit you? What they do is and of course, big name bands have a little bit more clout than we do, but the idea is the same, and you can see this in lots of different areas. You know, most restaurants, most good businesses, they run their business at the optimal times to do business, but they don't set their business up so they're pandering to everybody's needs all the time. We do get this message a lot. You've got to listen to your customers. You've got to give your customers what they want. But that to a certain extent, and it has to work for you as well. And so it's the same with you guys. I listen to you guys. I'm here to hear what you guys have got to input, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to try and please every single one of you, because I wouldn't be able to. It would be an impossibility to give you each and everything that you want. But what I do is I take what you're saying and I look at the overall what can it be done? Is it feasible? Is it worth it? And then I look at my resources, because one of the big things about business, and there's a great business book, just trying to think what the name of it is, it just eludes me at the minute, but it went into, and it looked at the most successful companies in terms of its share price over a fairly lengthy period of time. I think it was something like 2 decades, 20 years. And what they did is that when they interview people and ask people generally, which businesses do you think are the most successful, or sorry, it was about CEOs, that's right, which CEOs do you think had the best track record? And people would pick out, you know, people who were CEO of Microsoft or GE, or and you know, kind of big companies. So you know, Jack Welch from GE and all these kind of guys. But these guys are the big name celebrity CEOs. They're not actually the CEOs who have the greatest performance. And by performance, as this guy's talking about, he's talking about where they took the company to where they ended up. So in other words, how much percentage-wise, how much did they increase? But anyway, what he did is he did this long research study on these particular companies, and what he found was that it was their ability to allocate resources and capital that made the difference. They were very good at allocation. In fact, most of these guys were not, they were different kinds of personalities, but they didn't, there was no trait where you could say these guys had great charisma, they were very good in front of people. They, you know, it wasn't like a Steve Jobs performance or a, you know, Jack Welch or you know, these kind of guys who were sort of, as we see in the media, a lot of these guys were very quiet, introverts, so just everything you can imagine, the whole mix. But so it wasn't their personalities. What made the difference was their ability to allocate, like I said, the resources and capital. And one of your main resources, if not your most important resource, is your time. So when you come to doing your timetable and scheduling, you want to schedule people in where it will work for you. So if you've got 3 days that you're mostly going to group teach to start off with, let's say, that's where it's all going to go. Then when people say, I can only do the Friday, I can only do the Monday, if you start catering for them because you're desperate for that money, because you don't feel you want to lose that inquiry, then that's generally a poor way of using your resources, because now they're going to take up time. You would be better off looking at that time going, well, if I've got to teach on Monday to cater for this student, there's at least an hour there. I could be out doing some flyers, doing some marketing to get some more students. Okay, it might take me another month to get another student, but then I have a student who comes at a time that suits me rather than a time that suits them, perfectly, so to speak. But what you're doing is you're finding students who can fit into your timetable. Does that make sense, Bob?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I'm gonna make up my schedule and stick to it like I've done so far in my teaching.
Yeah. Like just go hard on the marketing and keep keep to that. And there's a certain confidence that comes through too when you're selling it. So say, well, I've got this time or I've got that time.
To hit the flyering really, really hard in the next, starting in the next. Well, I'm going to start off a little easy so I don't kill myself, and then build it up over the next couple of months. But I'm looking to be able to do about 20,000 flyers a month. So, going out every day, like 4 hours. I need the exercise anyway. Deliver flyers. So if I do 20,000 a month, certainly I could probably get 10 or 12 students a month from that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There are some dips and things here and there, but we know generally 1 in 1,000 is what you're going to get, and I think the other guys here can vouch for that. So. Yeah.
But there's also the retention rate and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah.
12 students a month probably.
Cool. Yeah. And look, with your experience, you're going to be able to retain them. You've got a lot of experience behind you, years, and you're very passionate about your teaching and guitar generally. So you just need to get those inquiries through the door. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yep. Cool. Excellent. Very exciting. Okay, so we'll jump in now. Ben, sorry, did you want to say something, Ben?
Yeah, just a quick one for Bob. A practical thing that I used to do, and happy to see whether you guys agree or disagree, was first thing on the phone was we want to keep these 5 weeks, as we've discussed. Keep the intro, bang, 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 same time, make them aware it will change, and then within a week or two of the intro, the only question I'd ask them is there any days, any nights you can't do? Because these are the group nights I've got. Your time or your son or daughter's time will change. Any days you definitely can't do, and that way I can prime them and say, well, listen, you might have to move football practice or move this because I've only got this day, I've only got that day. But at least within a couple of weeks they're aware that they're probably not going to keep the same time they've got at the moment, and they're going to have to move to a different time.
Do you tentatively discuss a group time with them early on, like when you first speak to them, saying, well, this time for intros and then maybe these 2 times for groups for you? Do either of these work, and then kind of like pencil them in for one of those?
Yeah, because where I'm at, Bob, I've not got, so I've got nearly 50 students, not quite, but obviously still working on smaller groups of 2s and 3s. I've got quite a few groups that are full, so when I get a group of students in for an intro, I'm already thinking, well, so-and-so's on junior level 1, he can go with so-and-so, and he's an adult, he can go with so-and-so. So I'm already sort of mentally saying, well, he'll work with him and he can go with him. So I'm trying to prime them up to say, well, listen, it's going to be Thursday at 5, or I think you'll work really well with the group on a Monday at 4 o'clock or whatever.
Right.
So I'm thinking about personalities in the group, and I'm thinking about the scheduling as well. But yeah, that's it, letting them know early and letting them know, even though it does end up working in your favour, it doesn't sound like you're being, too hard and fast, as in, I've only got this time. Now, I know that when I get to 75 or 100 students, I can be more honest and more upfront and say, listen, I've got Friday at 4 or nothing, and that'll be fine. But for now, while I'm still wanting to keep people and please people to a certain extent, I've got to be a little bit more flexible, like we've talked about, but I'm still very much, I've got this time or this time. I've not lost anybody yet. I know I've lost inquiries through saying I don't work Tuesday nights or I don't work Saturdays, for example, but I've not lost anyone yet going from intro to group by them saying, oh, I'm sorry, no, I can't do the group on a Wednesday. It's magically, all of a sudden, they've found space to do it, so I know that it's the right way for me.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah. And I think just to end on that is that, Ben, what you're obviously doing is building good rapport with them, because that's where in those 5 weeks, if you build that strong rapport, they'll move mountains to be at a certain time. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's jump into the G4 guitar method, and I'll start with you, Ben Messenger. If you want to give me some of your comments, and then Ben Arcadi and I already had a bit of a chat earlier, and so we'll go over his notes in a minute, what he wants to talk about. So yeah, go for it, Ben.
Actually, a very quick fire. I've only had this morning, I've been away in London for the weekend, so I've only had this morning to have a look at it, but just going through it, if you don't mind, I'll flip through page by page just quickly, if that's okay.
Sure.
I love the questionnaire being on page 2. I think it's a great idea. I had some really good feedback. I didn't have anything particularly negative, but some nice little ideas that I took on board. But I did a questionnaire. I think we all did one, didn't we, about 6 months ago or so, 5-6 months ago, and it was a real pain to remember to give it out to students and chase them. You always felt you were chasing up, or look, great, you filled out your practice log, well done, but you've not done the questionnaire yet, do you mind? Whereas having it as part of the method from day one, I think it's a great idea. Nothing I'd add to that. Ultimate songlage on the next page again, great. And I like the idea, the way I put my folders together was having all the boring but important stuff at the front, so the song list, the practice schedule, the practice log, and have the actual materials towards the end of the folder.
Yeah.
So I think that's great, having all that up front. Let's see, a couple of little things. I think it'd be good personally after the picking page to have, and I do this already, is have space for the 20 picking exercises.
Okay. Yep.
So I know they're missing out with this version of the, but I've always found that as we got into a couple of months, even level 1, juniors and seniors, I was saying, okay guys, pick a number between 1 and 20, and the kids loved it. Oh, number 10, great, okay, this is what we're doing on this exercise, and it was a way of, even though they might not fully understand, the tablature and the up and down strokes, I just talk them through it, and I've got the kids playing Pin the Tail and Donkey, where I said, okay, you've got 20, this is a couple of months in with the kids, but adults do it from almost day 1. don't think of picking as boring. You've got 20 exercises there. I only want a few minutes a day off you, so literally pick one at random. I'll do that one today. And I'd do that at the start of every lesson where they just pick a number, explain what was going on, and then we'd do that for a few minutes. So maybe space for the exercises may be there. Same with the chords. Again, I've never had a real problem, but I like the idea of having the bigger chord charts from the chord book. Certainly the level 1 chords anyway, you know, all on one page, maybe after that chord sheet. I think it's great. It explains it well enough, but maybe more for adults than kids. The chord boxes there maybe a little small. You know, when we've squashed, what have we got, 7, 8 boxes there. They all seem to, my students all turn to the big chord boxes straight away. They seem to prefer it being slightly bigger and.
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. I realise now you're mentioning it. We do want those bigger chords in there. One of the things about this first current version of the G4 guitar method is I want to get it so every level has its own book instead of all the different skills. If you know what I mean. Yeah. So this is kind of the first.
Arpeggios. Again, personally, not a big fan of the idea of beginner, harmonic, and melodic. I think it's a great idea, but I think when most people who are looking at this page are going to be beginners, that to me is still a little bit more information than what they possibly need, especially when the skills, like we talked about, the way that I teach it, I talk about the arpeggio technique being just the right hand technique, so you can get House of the Rising Sun and any of those sort of tracks. Nothing else matters, the intro to that, just from keeping the chord simple, so we already know this chord, working on the right hand technique. Although I like the way that you talked about on Facebook the other day about adding in the melodic arpeggios. Personally, I feel that would be something for later, for a more advanced student. Might be only for a level 2 student. You know, we might not be talking months in advance. Maybe I've just been going at it a different way. You know, maybe I should have included them from the start. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be just keeping it very simple. Still, because my whole approach really was giving the students, even beginners, all the essential skills, but giving them the most basic versions of them as possible. From the word go. So for the juniors, I agree. For a junior, it's going to be a bit of a challenge, but I think for a senior, because we've got Pretty Woman in there, which is an arpeggio, a melodic arpeggio in itself. So it's kind of to not explain what a melodic arpeggio is while they're actually learning one in a song would probably not be right. But I do hear what you're saying. Maybe for the junior, we just needed maybe a different sheet in there, or do you know what I mean? Take that one out and put a more simple one in.
Having said that, on the next page, on page 12, when you've got level 1, that's exactly how I teach them, and that makes perfect sense to me when you've got a chord shape and you've got so that's how I do it. Again, maybe I'm missing a trick, not putting the melodic shapes in there yet. I don't know.
Yeah, look,
what you get.
I think like for a junior, if you did a C, a melodic arpeggio, that would I would do that for a J1. I would give them at least a C melodic, just to give them a taste, to say that this is just so they understand what it is, because there's really no harder than the scale. It's skipping. Yeah. So
guys, do you mind if I jump in a bit here?
Yeah, go Ben. Yeah.
I think most of the points you're bringing up so far, Ben, are the things I've tried to address in mine.
Right.
So
cool.
Maybe it would make more sense if we looked through that now, and then you can tell me whether you think it does address those points, or if you think we need to change it further.
Yeah, maybe if we go one point at a time together.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, rather than going through each of the points. So, so do you want to step back, Ben Arcadi, and talk about something?
Yeah. Can you all see the group chat there with the 2 links I've put in?
Can you guys see the links? Ben, have you got it on your screen?
I could do the screen share. Shall I do that now?
Do a screen share, yeah, that way it's easier. Yeah, because people who are watching this video won't be able to see.
Use a specific window. Entire screen will probably do. There you go.
Yeah. So just on the left there.
Can we all see that?
is it sharing? There's another button you generally got to click before it'll share at the top.
As far as it says you are screen sharing, I can click stop.
There we go. All right. Okay. Now that was up then.
All good? Cool. So I'll show you. Here is just the rearranged version that I did. So from the beginning, I've just put those two at the front because those are the two that I put separately. They're in the front kind of wallet of the folder, and then first page would be that one, and I put the checklist on top of that once we get to the checklists. And then between that one and the practice page is the student schedule, practice schedule, but I don't have that in the method because I print it out with their name written into it separately. Sorry, typed into it, I should say. So then, as Ben was saying, I've put all these kind of the pages that sometimes get hidden at the back of the folder in here, and that order isn't entirely perfect. I just moved that because I think it gets a bit ignored. So now I've got everything in order there. Moved this one because I always talk about the string numbers and names to lead into saying string 6 here, because otherwise they don't know what's going on. So that's just the general order of things, and you can see when we have exercises, I put them after each one, so the arpeggios after the arpeggios, nothing after the scales, but after the rhythm, both the rhythm ones that are included. Then after the reading, all these reading pages. Is this scrolling way too fast, or is it smooth enough for you guys to see what's happening as it passes?
Oh, that's cool, Ben.
So after all the reading, oral and theory, and we're done. Does that seem like a good order there? Apart from maybe, I think if I changed anything straight away, I'd say that this, the daily practice sheet, would be the last thing. It would be between understanding the method and the what I call the labels page.
So Ben, just go back to the top again. Let's work through it, just so we can.
So practice log and ultimate song list aren't actually in the hole punched section. They're separate in the inside wallet. That's the first page in the hole punch section, the cover page. Between that and the next page is their practice schedule.
Just stop there for a second. So, that's cool. I think you can still, for the sake, because we've also got students who download it as well, so we've got to consider them.
In fact, I think I've got a different order for the free version, only slightly different. But.
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of want to keep it universal, but I would put the cover on the top. But the way you make your folder, it won't really matter because that.
Yeah, when I was putting those two at the front, that was exclusively for ease of printing. That's why I took out the practice schedule page. Obviously, that would be in the method for everyone, but I think it makes sense for teachers if they want to type it in to not have to always go file print 1 3 to 27. It just means print everything, and I can also print out my separate one with the students' details.
Okay, cool. So for the questionnaire and the ultimate song list, the reason, and I discussed this with Michael Essery, and I thought this was a good reason.
I agree with what you were saying there. As I said, this is the method that I changed before we even had the questionnaire.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, no worries. Yeah. So
that was just general reordering.
Yeah, because it's the whole thing of qualifying the student in the beginning. Having the questionnaire is like, why are you learning guitar? What's it all about for you? What's the emotion behind it? And then, all right, let's write your songs down, some songs that you really want to play. Get the ultimate song. Yeah. So that really builds that, and this is what I talk about a lot.
That's a big deal at the beginning, straight away.
Yeah, make that connection with the student about why they're here, what's it all about for them. And then we go into, okay, well, now we're going to build it. Now you've got the dream, what you want. Let's get down to let's break it down and build it. So that's great. So that's just my thoughts. Does anyone else want to jump in here? Well, we're at this point. We're going to keep going.
I'll just say before that, as I said, that's a general order. So obviously, if we want to rearrange things, fair enough. But I was just kind of agreeing with Ben in the sense of motivational stuff, the rest of the text-based stuff, then skills, and have the exercises after each skills page, rather than the 7 skills pages and then any exercises that we have for them.
Okay, cool. So the reading materials, which are and they're important, and I do really like the idea of putting the practice sheet at the front there as well. So with the things like motivational, like we definitely want them to read them and not to get neglected. But I think once you're sort of getting into your week-to-week lessons, you don't really want to be going past all those pages to get to your skills pages. Is that right?
I see what you're saying, but I've found it's actually, you have the start of the lesson and you see the things while they do a picking exercise, and then turning to the first skill is fine. And then once they're all in order, it's okay. And if you'll be at the earliest skill you're doing. And generally, I find I don't normally go skill 3 then 2. I always go 3 then 4, or 3 then 5, or 3 then 6. So by having the last page in the folder a skills page rather than all the motivational stuff, because in the front there was the practice schedule, so a little bit of fluff. In the back there's the motivational stuff, so a bit more fluff. When they're trying to just get to the exercises, we don't want the very first page of the folder to be exercises. So I think it would be good if you could turn to the last page and know exactly where you were, rather than about 4 pages back from the last page, I'll get to my oral and theory. About 6 pages in from the front page, I'll get to my picking. It'd be good if there was one definite end, so they can very quickly go ding.
Yeah, because where I'm hoping it'll go, and obviously, there's a little bit of a step here forward, but that is that all that they will have at the front of their folder in the end are the things that they need, such as their practice log and their ultimate song list, maybe their checklist, of course, a checklist and practice log and ultimate song list, just to keep referring to it. But really the checklist and the practice log are the 2 main things that we want at the front, and even their schedule, so that they can remember that. And then everything else you present on a screen. So you have like a big, that's I think that's where you want to get. And let's face it, the screens aren't very expensive anymore. They're for the cost of a couple $100. If you guys maybe £100, you can buy a decent sized screen, plug it into your laptop, and away you go. So
the problem for me is convincing my parents that wall that will eventually be their living room again is the wall for me to take and put big holes in.
Yeah, well, I think it all comes down to putting a price on things. What's it going to cost me to put holes in your wall?
You don't need a mirror. You can get a big black mirror there.
That's it. And the sooner I make money, the sooner I get out of here, and you won't have to put up with me. That's what I used to do. I used to play drums, and my parents go, "Stop the drums. Turn it down." I'd say, "Well, the more I practice, the better I get, and the sooner I'll be out of here." This was many years ago, of course. So
this isn't now.
Not now, no. Not recently at all. So Ben Messenger, did you want to carry on from there? Did you want to add anything?
If you're happy with me blathering on about the individual skills, then great, because I've just got little things here and there for each one, that's all. It might be just...
that's the stuff I was thinking. What I've shown you so far is the order, that I haven't made any changes to the content. The next thing, if you don't mind, if we've got time, would be the content. It'll just have to be quick if everyone's in a rush, but we could always leave it running.
Don't rush it, but just don't try and do everything. Just let's get on one point. Let's work it. If we run out of time, then we'll do another point next time. These things are evolving, or you can come in on Wednesday, and we'll do it then as well.
Sounds good. And what I think is probably easiest if I do it page by page, so you can see how it's actually changed.
Yep.
So obviously the questionnaire is in there. I'd like to get that in there. I think I agree. I don't remember exactly the old questionnaire, but I think I agree with whoever said that this is a bit easier for them to not answer all the questions. But then it's a matter of deciding how much space to give for each question. If we do have question answer, question 2 answer, question 3 answer.
I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding with the questionnaire. The questionnaire is something that I think you should ask them yourself and be there with them. Guide them through it. Don't just give it to them, just take home and do.
Yeah.
Actually.
Now it's in the front of the folder. It'd be brilliant to do that. Mention it in the first lesson, discuss it in the second lesson, make sure in the third lesson they know that we want to have thought about it enough so that even if we take 10 full minutes in the 5th lesson, we will have answers to them by then.
Yeah. You can even say, look, turn up to your lesson 10 minutes early, and you have it in a folder, or even 15 minutes early, just have it there. and you give it to them, and you can let them know in an email that there's going to be a questionnaire. Just say turn up 15. Whenever you go to a doctor or a dentist or something like that, if you haven't been there before, they always say to you, come a little bit early because we've got a form you need to fill out.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say, I already sometimes mention, maybe think through your week, see if you can come up with an idea of when you're going to be doing your practice. Think through the songs you know, maybe see if you can come up with some ideas that you'll put in your ultimate song list, just so they come and they can go, yep, I've already heard of that concept, and I'll put a couple in.
Great, excellent. So yeah, like you say, over the 5 weeks, you can definitely get those questions answered, if not in the first lesson.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Right, so questionnaire. Oh, get the email then. So questionnaire, ultimate song list. Obviously, that's the reordering stuff. So the practice schedule. Oh, I noticed on this practice log we've got 3 columns. Is that a mistake?
No. I think it was Lalo asked if we could add a 3rd column quite a while back, somewhere that he could put a sticker or get a parent to sign it or whatever.
I've put my stickers in the middles.
Right. Yep. So there, you can add little stickers in there. The kids will love it. Yeah.
So yeah, past that we've got the skills sheet. Don't think I've changed anything on that. So here's where things actually start being different. So I've taken this, the medium to hard picks bit, and made that. Oh, there you go. Made that a bit of a more explanation point, so that all these are about technique.
Yep.
So I've added in using the very tip of the pick and small pick distance as the last thing they can start thinking about as it starts getting into a bit more efficiency. And that's something I imagine you might say is a bit too much detail.
Yeah, I try and keep it down to 3 or 4 points.
That's that's the first one I got to 5 and thought, But we can have a look at that and see what's going on. You guys all have a copy of this, and I'll put it in. If you share this on Facebook, David, once we've got the link, I can put the links to these in so people can see it in their own time and zoom in and stuff. But yeah, what I've done there.
Okay, well let's just stop there. Come back to that, and because we'll need to finish in a minute. So what is that point again? Just can you go over it again, and we'll get a bit of consensus with the guys here what they think. So
what I've done with this page, or specifically what I was saying?
Let's just start with the points. So you've taken out you've moved the point about not using soft picks, and you just put it down lower. Is that right?
That's it.
Okay, which is
probably take out
not technique. Yeah, I don't disagree with that because it's not technique. So probably not necessary to have it there. Everyone else good with that? Just put your thumbs up if you're good with it, or thumbs down if you're not. All right. Okay. All right. So yeah. So that's fine. We can move that. So take out. Okay. Next thing, Ben.
So now I've just said bracing, and I've said brace your picking hand. The main reason I put that top point in, hold the pick between your thumb and index finger, was because that then means I can say brace your picking hand with any/all of your remaining fingers. Because when I explain the bracing, they understand it in the lesson, everything makes sense. They come back, they start picking, and I say, looking good. Do you remember there was one point we pointed out? And they're not sure, so I point towards the top of the page, and they're like, oh yeah, bracing. And then they're not entirely sure what they were doing. And obviously I might be explaining it incorrectly, but they do it perfectly the first time. So I thought it would be good, just any points where, as far as I know, I'm explaining it fine, because they are doing it straight away the first time when I'm there to explain it. Yeah. Anytime someone then came back and did something differently, I've made a point of that on the method.
Okay, cool.
So that bracing, not knowing what to do with their fingers, where they're going, is the first thing that I thought. I've explained this a number of times, and they're getting it when I say it, but they don't remember it when they look at the method and think, what am I practicing?
Yeah. Cool. All right. Okay, so let's leave it there because we're out of time, and I know you guys are busy. So what I'll do, Ben, is just send me. So I've got that on the copy that you sent me. Is that right?
Yeah, there should be that. I think that was in the email earlier, and then on the group chat,
Okay.
it's the first of the two.
Okay, so it's the G4 Method 2015 copy that you sent me.
Yeah, I think so. First of the two recent things, not the
Yeah,
one
that's
from
cool. Yeah,
1047.
okay. All right, no worries. Okay, cool. So we'll leave it there, and yeah, we can continue on with some more of that if you want to join on Wednesday, Ben, or next week, whatever suits you, and we'll carry on.
Do you mind if I just give a kind of 1 minute skip over the rest then?
Sure, if you want. Yep, go.
So generally what I've done, I've put the exercises above the remember points because they want to know roughly what they're doing. So for example, picking this string, then that string. Then what am I thinking about while doing it? And then I've put the directional picking at the bottom. I know that was something that people weren't sure of, so I've tried to word it in a way that says, this is an option. It'll help you work out which way to pick if you're not sure. If you already know a way and you prefer it, that's fine. So hopefully that works for people to agree with. That's something a bit more for people who didn't agree with directional picking to have a look at. I'd love to get Don's views on that, because I know he wasn't entirely for directional picking. And then generally the points are just, I've either added in things that I think need explaining, like the thumb position, which we didn't have in any detail, I just said thumb support the fingers, or I've rearranged them. Again, as I said, exercises, then the remember points. And I'd like to keep the melodic arpeggios, but make them a lot simpler. So obviously that's something we'll have to discuss together. But by readjusting these bits here, I think I've explained it a bit more simply, and then the teacher can just say, harmonic arpeggios are what we were starting with mostly, so you can see we'll start out learning one, we'll later learn a few more. Melodic arpeggios are also useful for X, Y, and Z. Don't worry about them until later, if that's how people want to approach it. And then yeah, just maybe some edits to the technique points. So you notice I've explained, I've put legato a bit more and I've rearranged it, so here's the stuff you should already know, here's the new thing which will help us with this and this. Just slightly more detail on the explanations and a little bit of rearranging. I've done up to this page, strumming and rhythm. Obviously it's not all entirely finished, still waiting for people to say what they think, but then reading and oral and theory I've barely touched, so it's mostly just those 5 skills pages, picking, strumming. But yeah, I'll leave that there.
We'll leave it there, yeah. So what'll happen is that when you share it with the other guys, just share it in the Facebook group, and then yeah, everyone can sort of download a copy and have a look at it. And you know, I know there are certain guys in our network who are very passionate about the method, so they'll tell you what they think, and then we can take it from there.
Cool. What I think I'll do is it's already exported as a PDF. I'll take out all the other pages. I'll just leave picking chords, arpeggio scales, and strumming.
All right,
and then you're just
cool.
looking at the bits I've changed.
Fantastic. Excellent. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, guys. Shall see you same time, same channel next week.
Awesome.
Right.
And I'll see you on Wednesday, David.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Well, Ben, if you can make that, that'd be cool.
Cool. See you then, guys.
See you guys. Bye.